Okay.
Yeah, Bob.
So as I was saying, I personally work with this board and some past boards in trying to amend the documents for various things over the past few years. And inevitably, each one of the attempts failed because the requisite number of votes is just too high. It's become unachievable. And understand that not many, but there are quite a few investor-owned units, there are bank-owned units. They're not as involved as those who live here. So again, it becomes increasingly difficult to attain that number. I recommended to the board, and we're here today to talk about a new proposal that's going on the table, and it's just one. The one single proposal being made to all of you, that will be made to all of you once the board approves it, is to amend the declaration for one purpose, to reduce that number, that 2/3 number. Take that 2/3 number to majority. Majority still are going to take a lot of work every time there's an amendment, and you should all still feel protected that nothing's going to get by you without your say. But it's an attainable number. You can get a majority of the owners, of all the owners, to vote on an issue. You know that it's been considered very carefully by the owners, but when it passes, the board will be able to do something. So what I've explained to the board is the first thing we need to do in developing any sort of future plan for this community as far as changing the documents to comport with the law and changing the documents to comport with the times is to get that number down. So you're going to see in the next few weeks an amendment that's coming your way, and the amendment is basically going to say there's going to be a cross out from 2/3 and it's going to say 50% plus 1. So it's going to be a majority, reducing that number. I've talked to the board about getting committees together. Some of you may be asked to volunteer for the committees. Get out there, let's get this vote. It's going to be a one-time achievement to get that 2/3. After that, again, it'll be majority to get this accomplished. Some of you are probably saying, okay, well, everything seems to be working okay. Why are we going through this effort? Again, 1977 was a long time ago. And there are really good reasons. And let me go through some of the reasons as to why you would want to make it easier to amend your documents in the future, okay? The first one is that you can eliminate obsolete provisions. You have a lot of obsolete provisions in your documents, including references to developer and developer rights. They don't apply anymore. They shouldn't be there. They need to be excluded. Provisions that are no longer observed, get rid of them. Any kind of provisions that conflict with the laws. You may or may not know, you probably don't, but the kind of ambiguous provisions, of which there are many in your declaration. You can include provisions that include current and future technology. Obviously, in 1977, there was no idea about satellite dishes or anything like that. Those are things that are current, and there will be future things, and we need to have restrictions or rules or regulations governing what happens with those types of things now and in the future. So again, reducing that number would allow you to take care of what's now, and if something else happens in the future, it would be an attainable thing. Another thing that will probably make you all happy is it's going to reduce your attorney's fees. As I indicated before, when there's a conflict, the board doesn't know what to do. The board's not an attorney. They don't read case law regularly, so they have to call and say, okay, what applies, the declaration or the law? And they have to seek the legal advice. If we take that ambiguity out of your documents by updating them as needed on a regular basis, it's going to take out that ambiguity, ultimately lower your fees. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of why this is necessary and how it may affect you. Let's just talk about material changes. There's a provision in your documents that limits this board to make any kind of material change. Now in the law, a material change is something as simple as a color. So if the board wants to change the color of the buildings or the shade of the color of the buildings, to update it, to change the design of the buildings to make them modern looking and obviously increase your values accordingly, the board has to get your approval. In your documents, it says they have to get the approval of 2/3 of the members. That's something that should be amended in the future. Reduce that so that that the board, along with the owners, in a majority vote, can approve. There's other things in your documents that are frankly not legal. I mean, you have, and I'm not saying the board has not been enforcing things that are not legal, but I'll give you an example. The documents refer to no children under the age of 16 because you're 55 and older community. Well, the law really says it's under 18, so that the 16 is not the correct number. It's not the right age. We really need to change that. But again, because of the 2/3 number to amend, that hasn't been changed. I will tell you, as you all know, my lawyer friends are very busy, and it's a very litigious society that we live in. And it's really, and those types of provisions that are not in compliance with federal and Florida law can cause problems and can expose this association to lawsuits. Nobody wants that. So, I'm here today to explain to you the legalities of what's involved in this proposal they're making, as well as the benefits. So that's what I've presented to you. And I do encourage each and every one of you to vote yes when this proxy comes out and get this approved so that going forward, the board, not this board, all future boards can accomplish things. Again, you'll still be involved. The major decisions will still require membership vote, but it will be a majority. So it will be an attainable number. You know, right now the board is basically handcuffed. There's very little, I mean, there are things the board can do, but not as much as they should be doing just because of the provisions in your declaration. So I'm here to explain that, to encourage all of you to vote once it happens. And we're gonna make this pretty simple, and I know you've seen them in the past. They'll be what we call a limited proxy. And you just vote yes or no for the amendment. Keep it simple. The proxy form is not the best. I didn't draft it. That would be the state of Florida. But the yes or no vote is the key. Okay, so that is what we're here to discuss. Does anybody have any questions about it? Really? Yes, ma'am.
2/3 to pass that?
Yes.
Correct. And that's why, well, with committees and with your help and talking to your friends who may not be here and your neighbors, other owners, I think it's an achievable thing. Again, we're only dealing with one issue, so it's a single issue. Hopefully we can get people to pay attention to one page. That's really the goal here. So hopefully people will just send in the one page with a yes on it and we can get the 2/3 this time.
Question over there.
And I assume you're gonna send out a lot more proxies to change it.
That's not in the immediate plans, but right now,
I would at least to make it in compliance with the Florida state law.
as soon as we get this done, and I'm hopeful with this board's help and the committees that will be assisting, that this association will get this amendment passed. As soon as the amendment gets passed, I'm happy to work with the board on getting some of the really important things, again, to comport with the law, first and foremost. I agree, 100%. Yes, sir.
Are there any downsides to this case?
No.
I can think of one. It makes a disproportionate power in the hands of investor-owned units. They gain power. In other words, let's say there are 50 investor-owned units, pick a number. Right now, your proportion is 50 among 2/3 of whatever the vote needs to be. Right now, with that change, then it changes to 50 among half. That increases their power.
I can see that in the future,
That down in
but
the-
right now we only have 5, about 10 units.
No, I don't believe it's 50 and a half. It still has to be 50% or 50.1% of the 268 units.
But what he's saying is the more investors there are, the easily that 50% will be achieved.
The lower number of votes that you need to pass something, the more powerful they are.
Well, I'm gonna counter that.
Yeah, I was gonna count it too.
Okay, if I counter that with saying, okay, right now you can't do anything, so the community can very easily change to an investor community rather than a resident community, because there's not a whole lot you could do to restrict that. This is not a discussion I've had with the board, but I have done this for other communities, restrict the investors, restrict things like the number of units any one person or entity can own. Those are types of things that will be achievable once this is
That's
passed.
corporate ownership.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please repeat the questions that they're asking? We don't know what you're talking about back there.
Okay.
Give the questions.
The gentleman asked if we can, think of any downside, any detriments to passing the amendment lowering the number of votes necessary. And I said no, and he indicated that it would give some more power to investors as they accumulate their numbers in the community. And I responded that you could actually stop the investors from taking over the community and keep the community, primarily residential. Yes, ma'am.
It's a two-part question. If the condo declaration is silent, does the condo law have a voting restriction, a voting quota, like the 50%, the simple majority? And the second part is, of the condominium associations you represent, do most of them have the simple majority rule?
Okay, to some degree, you're right. If the condo declaration is silent, the statute may or may not kick in depending on the provision we're dealing with. But your documents aren't silent, so that doesn't even apply. Your documents clearly say
No,
two-thirds.
I just meant generally speaking.
And it really depends on the provision and the specific language. There are times when the statute would trump no matter what, regardless of what was in your covenants. So, and with regard to the other associations that I represent, I have to tell you, the newly incorporated, I'll say within the last 15 years, they tend to have even lower, like 33%, because you will find that people, when things are going well, they don't get involved, and it really just becomes an impossibility to get things done. 50% majority is more than adequate, and is the top, other than this 2/3, is the top I've seen. And that's really what they prescribe in the statute too. And in some circumstances even lower for certain things in the statute. So, most communities don't have 2/3.
Any other, was a question back there? Way back there?
Why do we do this on the end of the season, not in the beginning of the season? Just so we got more time to talk about it. And,
The plan is
the more
to,
people they hear, a lot of people that left.
you're absolutely correct, but the plan is to, once Tamar drafts the amendment, we're gonna send it out either early September, and there's reasons for that, because we have the drop dead we're thinking of is December 15th for the vote, and if we don't get it on December 15th, we have 90 days after that to go after
Why
it.
don't we make it January, this way the more people they hear, we have a more discussion about this one.
Well, because some people transition between December, October,
It'll be
and
mailed.
December and January, okay? So that if we have to get some people, we already know in December who we're looking for, and they'll come down in January, we'll
And
find
also, I have
them.
another question, why 2/3 and not 3/4, the couple, the people? Because a lot of condos, they have a 3/4, not 2/3.
3/3, that's 100%.
Oh,
3/4. That's what we have now, 3/4.
That's 100%. 3/4. Why do you
That's
have
75.
3/4?
That's even harder.
That's hard, that's high.
3/4 is, it's more people, not half and a half.
Well, you can't even get 2/3, so how would you get?
We've tried.
Make it 2/3 to return a vote.
Correct. That is 3/4. I have to say, in the general state of the law, is pretty unreasonable.
Yeah, because a lot of condo, I'm belonging to the condo, and we have 3/4.
That's why I don't.
The people's got to vote on it. Otherwise, the amendment is not passed.
And nothing gets done. That's the problem.
So,
Get you back here.
half the people, most of the people, they're not here. How they're gonna vote?
Proxy. Yes, sir, in the back.
John, would you give the raw numbers in terms of the number of units? What 2/3 looks like, what 50%?
Well, what I can tell you right now is I did a head count, you remember that, right? If it's 50 plus 1, we need 134, which is half, plus 1, 135 votes. In the room tonight, there's 90 on. Now, do you think that we could get, 40 more votes? I think so. Right, there's 90, but we still have to get the original 2/3 to get the 50 plus 1.
Which is how much?
I don't know about that.
Zones is counted as one owner, but they may be 5 owners.
Oh, can you say that again, please? I got you.
So what am I doing?
So it means that you have maybe multiple owners, and you count them as one, maybe 2, 3, 4.
They make one multiple units.
Yeah, if they're here, that's even more votes.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah, like there's somebody in the room right now I know has 3. He gets 3 votes. Hopefully he's on our side, right? Okay, any other questions?
Yes, ma'am?
How often have we got the 50%? When we voted on something?
We've got over 50 last time.
We got 50% or more to return their votes. We have never received the
I
2/3
know that,
voting
but we have got the
return.
50. We have got
We,
the 50.
well, we've had 50%, we've had that, but we have never reached the 2/3 votes, whether they be yes or whether they be no. What we're trying to do is to push this because the people and their apathy and really don't give a damn, and it's too much for them to put something in an envelope and send back and give us a proxy. What we're looking to do is get enough people to go say, okay, if you don't care, you're not voting. But what happens when they don't care and don't vote, it counts as a negative vote for anything you're trying to do. And it can't be worded that if your vote doesn't come back, it's a yes. You cannot word it that way, so it has to be positive. So our problem really relies on the fact that we cannot get 2/3 of the membership to vote on anything. Whether, I'm sure if we told them we'd give the $100 bills out, we'd get 64%, but we wouldn't get the 66%.
I have to be honest, I recommended a lower number than majority to the board, because I still think that 50% plus 1 is going to be a hard number to achieve, but they wanted to make sure that all the members were comfortable knowing that they would still have their full say and they would have to participate in order for something to pass. So just to kind of let you know that's still a very difficult number to reach, but the board is willing, if there are amendments to be done in the future after this one passes, the board has committed itself to doing the work necessary to teaching the owners to informing the owners why that amendment would be necessary. So I just want to let you know that. Any other questions?
Just to follow up on Paul's question, it's 177.
We had 168 for the last time, yes. We had 168 the last time, is the most we've ever gotten for the board for any vote, and you need 177 to make any change.
178.
178, keeps going
That
up.
one will kill you.
Always. Other questions? Okay, oh, yes, sir.
Just to clarify that, we need 2/3 saying yes, or we need 2/3 participation?
2/3.
We need 2/3 saying yes.
Okay.
2/3 affirmative, that's how it reads. That's a very hard, yes. And the proposed change will be 50% plus 1 affirmative, saying yes. Other questions? Yes, Justin.
I still struggle with this because anything lower than 50 plus 1 really opens the door to a small group in this association to control everything that's going on.
So that's why the board, well, obviously the board has, I don't know if they have the same concerns as you, but the board will be proposing 50% plus 1. They didn't take my advice. But I will tell you 50% plus 1 will still be a burden, and you will all still be very involved.
Got it?
Somebody else have a question?
Eventually, all right, we can go through, go 50 plus 1.
Maybe
Now
if you
the board
stand
can
up.
change- The board can change things if they get the 130 votes right now, if they get the whole thing done.
No.
No.
After they pass the 178, if it gets passed, they can go to 50
I have to
plus.
correct you, because you keep saying the board can change things. The board will have no authority unless the majority of the members vote to rubber stamp it from the board.
The members change it to 50 plus 1. Then could the members, to relate Joe and everybody's point about certain owners having many properties, multiple properties, have a different voting schedule for different types of things? So that major things could continue with 50 plus 1, but other things could be just 30%? Is that legal for?
Well, you'd have to amend your document, so
No,
the
that's-
majority of you would have to agree to that.
Is that, I'm asking the question, is that legal?
Yeah, I mean, it's legal to have different, for example, we talked about the material alteration where your documents say you have to have 2/3 vote.
So the board eventually, usually the board, that's probably the thing, could eventually propose a multi-layer type of approval. Certain things could require 51%, certain things could by 30%, like putting new
Never.
flowers out at 30%.
Never. One vote, 50, has to be 50+%, period.
Well,
You
that's,
can't change, you can't
they can
change.
propose whatever they want, but
Yeah,
it
whatever
it
they
has to
want.
pass by everybody else's approval, so.
And I think, and I don't mean to cut you off, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I want to remind you what, sir, I want to remind you and I think what Jim's question. Once we get this 50+1, if we get it, then we can say, you can only own 2. It's not 5. You can say, we're not entertaining corporate purchases anymore. Has to be residential, it's not corporate. We can do all of those things,
But still has to be approved by.
but it has to be approved by 50.1 after this.
After this passes.
After this vote. One of the things I did, when I walked around and counted heads, and I think we were up to 80-something, and a lot more people came in. So there's like around 90 votes in this room right now. All right, by a show of hands, and please, no jokers with 2 hands up, who would support this?
Voters and non-voters.
Voters in the room who would support this? I got a few back there. that are interested. No, I'm not gonna count. All right, thanks.
So if that's the case, think about what we're saying. If that 90 in this room is so, then we need about 88 more people. Now, we know people went home that are here already. You know people. Your job is to make sure to explain it to them, and we're going in the right direction, I believe. But it's not just up to these people here. I mean, we are gonna send stuff out, but you need to talk it up. That's why we asked everybody to come here tonight. So if you understood it, hopefully you'll talk to your friends, the people here, the people that are not here, the people who went home. That was the goal.
Any